So take your Charlotte's beads. These ones are already pre-strung, and they're by a company called Broderie and Payette, which are based in France. So what you want to do is, the beauty about buying pre-strung beads is that you can just snip the thread and you can just transfer them onto the desired thread that you'd like to use. So the challenger is to work with the rayon thread. However, if you find it a bit of a struggle, don't worry, just stick with the metallic. It will still look just as effective and it will be a bit easier to work with. For those that were using the rayon thread in part 1, we went through that in a lot of detail, and as you know from feedback, it does split and fray when you bring it through if you're not careful. So remember to push on the back of the hook just to lift it through, and I'll go through that with you in a bit more detail. So first thing we're going to do is just transfer these beads. So I'm just going to snip that here. And I'm going to splice this thread using my tambour hook, so we don't have to do a knot. So I'm going to put it over my finger, like so. And then I'm just going to force the hook through the thread, and I'm just going to move it around a little bit to make a split. So splicing literally means to separate the two threads that are wound together. Okay, so just wriggle that around a little bit and that will just loosen them up. So there we go, so we've got it connected there. Just take the rayon thread, latch it on, and then you just want to move the beads over the thread, like so. So in a way you've created a knot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently slide those beads on, and then that will transfer. I would suggest to do this on your frame and not to do it vertically, because if it splits then they're all going to fall off. So it has happened occasionally. So just gently move those on. You probably only need half of those, so just take half of those off and then just slide them on, and that will gently transfer them, and that's actually the quickest way of doing it. Okay, so now we have our beads transferred. Just going to take that under the frame again. So we're going to start in this corner again, bring that through the fabric, and then plunging 1 millimeter forwards, wrap anti-clockwise, rotate. Remember to push firmly and with one fluid motion through the fabric. 1 millimeter backwards, anti-clockwise, anti-clockwise, lift through the fabric, and then we're going to plunge forwards. So remember, this is a combination of chain stitch and beading. So let's get the hand ready underneath. Again, just choose the method that feels more comfortable for you at this stage. These ones are the smallest beads you will be working with. Usually you don't work with beads much smaller than 15/0 because, you know, they actually are quite hard to thread up with a beading needle as well. So 15/0 is generally really good for just giving that little bit of finish, whether it's a border or it could just add that extra element. Gives it a bit more dimension when you work with larger beads as well. So just make sure that you're lifting at the right angle. So I didn't at that point, so that's how I picked up the previous loop. Okay, and I'm doing my stitches just a little bit smaller, so I'm actually going at 2 millimeter stitches, 1 to 2 millimeters. These beads, I would say, they're about 1 millimeter. So you really want to keep the stitches consistent with the bead width as well. Not always the case, but it does look a little bit better in terms of finish. So where you see your little marker, remember that's the point where you push up your Charlotte's bead, and then continue that line as you follow it round. really have to think about tension. Just be careful. Remember, as I said, just try and relax and not force it, because this is the nature of this design, and because it's open vermicelli, you can see more of the blemishes if you're pulling too firm underneath, or if you're not lifting at the right angle. When you lift it through the fabric, you're going to snag it on the way up. Okay, so that will mean it's naturally going to create a little bit of blemishing to the silk organza. Do feel a bit fiddly to try and separate the smaller beads. So it is definitely, practice makes perfect. But as I say, it's a great way to accelerate your skill level. So if you can really master the vermicelli in terms of learning to lift the hook at the right position and have the correct amount of tension, you're going to accelerate much quickly, because obviously you're having to really think about which way you're rotating the hook. So it's very different from going straight up and down. If you miss a loop like I just did there, I'm just going to put my finger underneath and pick up that loop. Make sure you get the whole of the thread, so if you have to go back one more, that's fine. Just pick that loop up. You want to make sure you go through all the way. So I had to lose a couple of stitches there, that's fine. Just to bring that through, I'm just going to pick up that loop again. So, there we go. As I say, this thread gives a beautiful sheen. It's machine embroidery thread, looks stunning on the fabric, and again it works well with the other threads that we've been using. However, again, you just have to be careful when you lift through the fabric. You pick up the whole of the thread and you don't splice it or separate the small fibres. That's the beauty about working with the fil à gante, is it's a mercerized thread, so, and it's single stranded, so it doesn't snag so easily. Plus it also has a beeswax coating on it as well, which just makes it a little bit easier to work with. But still, it's good to have a combination. Just going to do a finishing knot here. Pull that through, make sure that loop is nice and long. And then just hold the beads from underneath, because you still have beads on there and they'll fall off. So just take that off there. And then we're just going to have a quick look on the other side, make sure that looks like it's in the right position. There we go. So it's just really works well, those combinations. So that's the closed vermicelli, and then we've just finished that with that lovely open vermicelli. It's a great balance between the two. The next stage that we're going to be working on is the remainder of the seed beads, which are the Toho aqua purple ones. And we're just going to apply the beads to these tentacles here. Those two have been applied already, but we're just replicating that design. So we're just going to demonstrate with this one here, and then we're going to start to complete some of the other elements.